Retard.
Good evening. Hey, how are y'all doing? Right, we just had a resub from Ralph EDDK. Thank you so much. Oops, that's the wrong button. Let me try that again. There it is. Thank you so much. Ralph, I hope you're doing well. Thank you so much for your support. And Lilital, nice to see you as well. Lee, good. On YouTube, I welcome Christian and Captain Mitchell. I hope you're all doing good. And Dejan Bernick, hello, how are you doing? I'm doing well, thanks for asking.
Welcome aboard the Captain Black Box Twitch channel subscriber experience. Could new subscribers please make your way to the first class cabin, where complimentary drinks, snacks and premium flight entertainment will be served. Thank you.
Hey, Alpha18, hello, and 737NG fan coming in as well with 26 months. Thank you for the 26 737NG fan. And Ralph, thanks again for the tier 2 51 months. Absolutely incredible. Thank you so much for that. Right, let me go ahead on live weather. Actually, that's not bad. I was just wondering if I have to use some custom weather, but apparently it may just work. I'm not sure if the message has come through from Avenger Orion on YouTube, coming in with a 11 months resub. Avenger, thank you so much for that as well. Let me go and put this to...
Welcome aboard the Captain Black Box YouTube channel
There it is. There's the
subscriber
message.
experience.
Thank you so much.
Could new subscribers please make their way to the first class cabin where complimentary drinks, snacks and premium flight entertainment will be served. Thank you.
Once again, thank you so much. And Amantha, hello to you as well. And Mark, hello. How are you doing? Right. Oh, I don't know why we're using this livery, but I guess that's because of our next flight. While I was gone for how many days? Almost a week now, wasn't it? That was a long time. I was not able to stream. However, my last rotation was, on one hand, absolute chaos. I've never ever had a 5-day rotation where literally every day, apart from the first, but literally every day we had a change in the flight schedule. Every day. It was absolutely bonkers. And what scares me is just January. We are about 60% of our normal capacity right now, and it's already going absolutely nuts. So I don't know what to expect from this year, but I guess anybody flying this year should be cautious. Should be ready for some crazy times. Make sure that if you do travel, bring with you enough time, so that you don't get caught out in long queues at the airport, etc. So yeah, that was. Yes, Aaron. Yes, I'm still active flying. I'm currently rated on the A320 series. So not yet retired. Getting there. So there we go. All right. So guys, what's happening? Okay. So we are doing the following today. So we're going to start out here in Helsinki because Negative helped make a airport file for GSX, and I want to demonstrate the new GSX de-icing feature, and not the de-icing at stand, but actually the remote de-icing, which I am actually excited about, especially since they do have some nice features coming with it, and we'll demonstrate that. And I keep fingers crossed it'll work, because I tried it this afternoon, and this afternoon it worked excellent. Absolutely no complaints this afternoon, so we'll see. Are you excited about retiring? That's a good question, Aaron. I know that there are some people or some pilots out there that are worried about retiring, falling into a hole, if you like, not knowing what to do with their time. For me, I see it more a good chance to go and explore some other things. So maybe GA flying again, glider flying, but also live streaming, see what's happening in the flight sim world, what opportunities come our way. You'll never know. So for me, one thing I'm looking forward to is just simply being not so much schedule driven by an employee, an employer. So right now I do enjoy flying. Obviously it is very hectic, stressful at the moment, and yeah, it's a tough business. It really is. So, but definitely, I'm looking forward to trying out some new stuff, and we'll see what happens. Right. So, the topic today, guys, is as follows. So we've got remote de-icing. Now, while we have a wonderful new feature, if you like, available now, people are wondering, well, how do you actually go about with remote de-icing? What do you have to do? So what's the speciality about remote de-icing? And there is actually a difference in procedure when doing remote de-icing. So while you do all the preparations in normal, you know, flight plan, you read your checklists, you push back, start the engines. However, once you have started the engines and you need to remotely de-ice the aircraft, there are some procedural differences to the normal ops. So when you don't have to de-ice, and we'll have a look at this as we go along. So I've prepared this, and also let me see. That was the second page. We'll talk about engine run-up as well. Hey, Shili Shorter, Ahmed. So some people may be finding that interesting as well. And also we'll go through again the through de-icing basics. So we do have a checklist available for ground de-icing, anti-icing, and we'll go through that as we go along. So one thing that I guess pilots have to be careful with in these weather conditions is that you have to be very cautious on how you go about these different steps. And obviously aircraft contamination, you know, contamination of the wings, and you know, loss of lift, and etc., aerodynamic implications, weight implications, etc. So all these things have to be considered. And then obviously the whole procedure has some dangerous parts as well. So you have to be aware of the fact that you've got passengers in the cabin, crew in the cabin. So you have to configure the aircraft so that you don't ingest any de-icing fluid that may cause you know, smoke in the cabin. That's something that could happen. Also, you've got vehicles around the aircraft moving about. So you have to be aware of that as well. Jet blast, etc., and it's these things which, if you follow the procedures in a very strict manner, you should not have any issues at all. It's just that if you mess something up, you can endanger people's lives, their health, or you can actually damage the aircraft. And that is something obviously pilots are aware when you have these kind of weather conditions. And funnily enough, on my last rotation, obviously, I was facing not only cold weather, but also we actually had a very interesting weather phenomena in Billund. So actually I've got a nice video which I've published on YouTube as well now, but we can have a look at that later here on stream, where we had a very low level fog, something that I've not had for a very long time. Hey Lewis Daniel, how are you doing? Cool. I just checked the temperature, so this is the thing, it may not actually trigger GSX anti-icing. So that's what I am a bit afraid of. But we'll see. If not, we're just going to
aboard the Captain Black
go
Box
and
Duo Channel
I'll tell you what we'll do then.
Could new subscribers please make their way to the first class cabin,
Let's
where
do
complimentary drinks,
snow,
snacks and
shall we?
premium flight infotainment will be served. Thank you.
Just to make sure that we actually get... yeah, there we go. That's better. So that I know that GSX will now trigger anti-icing and de-icing. Hey, Jaju Miner, thank you so much for the 10 months. How are you doing? Is it really, Bartek? Okay, so this afternoon, I actually had +3 degrees, and it wouldn't trigger it. Well, I did update today, like 3 hours ago. Okay, we'll see. If it doesn't, then Actually, so let's just make sure. I just want to make sure that we're not flying online. So I just want to make sure that we actually have those weather conditions, which triggers that. Okay, thank you. Okay, Bartek, yeah, thanks a lot for that. Cool. All right. I'm going to do quickly. So we're not going to fly. So what we'll do, guys, we're just going to go talk through the whole procedure. I'll demonstrate how we go about this. And then on the second flight, we're actually going to fly on VATSIM from Munich to Cologne. And if I'm not completely mistaken, Munich actually has cold weather. So -1, overcast 300, freezing drizzle tempo. So that's definitely weather, live weather, where we have to de-ice the aircraft. So we can do that later on with VATSIM and see how that works when you actually are on a network. Hey, Fly Little, hey, and Cactus! 68 Cactus! How often have you had to de-ice this winter time? Because for me it was literally... Now after the holiday break, Christmas holiday break, it was actually the first time where I had to de-ice several times.
Experience. Could new subscribers please make your way to the first class cabin, where complimentary drinks, snacks and premium flight entertainment will be served. Thank you.
Yoda, thank you so much for the 39
it's a game,
months.
no de-icing required.
Oh, come on. How are you doing, Yoda? I hope you're well. Right, so let's do the inner request. Just, you know, just theoretically do a flight here. Oh, and I've been to Bergen yesterday. And it was horrible weather. It was raining. And so I've got a video recording of that as well. So I'll show that maybe on Friday. Ah, okay. You've been out of the airline industry a few years now, so no snow in New York City yet this year. We're about right now. Tons of rain. Ah, okay. It's weird. I saw some reports, but that was more like then maybe Chicago and the mid part of the US that had Norwegian Cav. Yeah, it was bad. It was really, really bad. And Captain Falafel, hey, how are you doing? It was horrible. No joke. Hey, Flatsim Dad, nice to see you. And to Krishu, hello to you. So I'm just going to do just some values here, and we'll do something in here as well, just so that we prepare. Oh, nice Cactus 683. Lovely. Well, I guess if you're a bus driver in New York City, then you're happy that's not snowing, right? Because that must be horrible to drive in. Then just put in the APU. Right. Here's something already. A button which we don't usually use, apart from these situations where there may have been an overnight stop. And I had this actually happen in London Heathrow a couple of days ago, where we had -6 degrees and freezing fog. And so the pitos, some of the probes were actually frozen. And so that way, and those areas are not supposed to be de-iced. So if anything, type 1, but in no way should be a type 2 or type 4 be used anywhere near the sensors. So, has it really? Okay, well, this link should work here. Hang on. Try this link here, Grüne Pizza. See if that works here. Fly Greenland, hello to you. Greetings to Greenland. Wow, you fly the King Air in Greenland. Whoa, okay. Well, I mean, Greenland also can have some very interesting weather situations. Yeah, wish you always happy landings. Yeah, exactly. So, Cactus, this is one of the things that that if you have fan blade icing, so normally on the outside check, what we do, we feel behind the fan blades there, so you can have some ice, especially in these freezing fog situations, where the fan blades accumulate ice as they taxi in, or when you taxi out, as a matter of fact. And so when the aircraft taxied in and stays overnight, let's say, and they actually had some icing, and it's -6 degrees, it will stay frozen to the fan blades until the next morning when you get to the aircraft. And I had the same thing, and luckily it wasn't that bad, so actually I could just simply use a very hot towel with hot water and get rid of the ice that way. But yeah, you can also use hot air to get rid of the fan blade icing. Wow, 6-degree path on the Parpies. That's crazy.
Welcome aboard the Captain.
Does GSX de-ice do anything in Microsoft or just eye candy? It's just eye candy at the moment. The thing is, it will depend on.
Snacks and premium flight entertainment will be served.
It will depend on your icing options. And
67 months time for retirement.
Oh wow, Alpha, nice to see you. Wie geht's dir? I actually I just worked it out. Wasn't it exactly 31 months? 34 months? Somewhere in the region of about something just over 30 months I have remaining, so. Thank you so much, Alpha, for the 67 months. That's really kind of you. Nice to see you, and I hope you're doing well. Alpha, I know that you travel a lot, right? So, you know, I seriously hope that you're not going to be faced with these chaotic situations too often this year. But I mean, I just fear that
duo channel experience. Could new subscribers please make their way to the first class cabin, where complimentary drinks, snacks, and premium flight infotainment will be served. Thank you.
Wow, still the good old 2D non-precision approaches, so timed NDB and DME approaches. Wow. And Barone coming in as well with 10 months. Thank you so much, Barone. I hope you're doing well. And MCK, hello to you. How are you doing? Good. So we'll do that. So let's just check the mass and balance. Again, we're not going to fly. We're just going to go through the ground procedures, and then we'll do the second flight later on. And let's do instant here. Dismiss. So we've got 58.4, 29.4. So 58.4 and 29.4. There we go. And the fuel is 6.5. That goes in there. Right. Today would be very likely like 22 right for departure. And then we'll have something with Adivo 3 November. Yeah, like I said, the rest we don't really care about. We can do some values here. Flaps 1. Down real quick. 1 here. We'll do. Actually, let's say we have contamination on the runway, so we have to do a toga power takeoff. Alpha says, yeah, I'm doing well, MCK. Thank you. Luckily this year we're mainly Taiwan long haul. Okay, it's not too bad so far. Okay, that's good to hear. But eventually they can try. They can try to strap me to my seat. Lufthansa Allegris, maybe. Well, who knows? Who knows? Who knows? We'll see. Hey Diego, how you doing? Not that I've seen MCK, no. So I have a feeling in general that right now there was kind of, you know, with FS Labs, simulating icing in P3D.
Welcome aboard the Captain Black Box Duo
There kind of was a little bit of a
experience.
shift towards
Could
getting more
new subscribers
infos
please make their way to the first class cabin, where
related to
complimentary
cold weather
drinks,
operations.
snacks and premium flight infotainment will be served.
But
Thank you.
you know, here in Microsoft, since it doesn't really affect most aircraft, you have to have aircraft add-ons. I think the PMDG 737 has icing effects that are working in, you know, to some degree. Here in the Phoenix, it does not work well. You've got to be really careful with icing actually active on the Phoenix. It can really mess up the aircraft. Well, yeah, MCK, again, this is one of those topics, you know, how close to reality do you take it? I guess, I mean, people, you know, that want to take it 100%, you know, accurate, yeah, then you've got issues, obviously. Okay, so, and Flying Vicky, thank you so much. That's a new member, that's a new sub. Welcome to the community. Thank you, Flying. Welcome to the community, and thank you for support. I hope you're doing well. You want the real aircraft? I can imagine, yeah. Right, let's see. So, cockpit preparation, gear pits covers removed, fuel quantity. We've got.
Good night, Black Box.
Already? Lilo, good night. Take care. Stay safe. 6,420 kilograms balanced. Then we've got seatbelts on. ADIRS, nav, and the Barbara ref. Yeah, Queenish 1013 set. Cockpit preparation checklist completed. We'll continue straight off with the before start checklist. Parking brake is set. Taker speeds thrust. So we've got V1 135, VR 138, V2 142, and Toga power. Windows closed. Beacon is on, and that's the before start checklist completed. Right, so here goes nothing. Let's see if GSX works. So when you start up GSX and you go prepare for pushback at departure, let's do some handling operator. It will ask you if you want to request pushback. And then it'll ask you, do you want the de-icing treatment? We'll use no, because we want to do remote de-icing.
Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brake set.
Yeah, so today actually, you know, with these conditions on the ramp, if it is slippery, you would actually delay the engine start.
Hello, Captain. We are ready for pushback.
Chock on? I removed the chocks, didn't I? Yeah.
Departure check completed. Bypass pin inserted.
You did remote de-icing in Frankfurt and Sim, not with the jet, but the FS Labs and its own de-icing systems. Went out since November 7th for de-icing next time. Oh, really? Okay. So what we're going to try and do, guys, we're going to do and use the real-world de-icing positions, and
locking gear.
So I want that. Where's my parking stands, airport roof? Right. So we want to do face northeast on Alpha Charlie. Yeah, that's that.
Release parking brakes.
Right. Well, that seems to work today.
Commencing push. Due to icing conditions, please stand by for engine start until push completed and brake set.
Of course, of course, of course. Right, there we go. So we're going to taxi to these de-icing pads there, and I've actually used those in real life, and this is where the the Nordic kind of airports, they have a fantastic de-icing system, because they are obviously faced a lot more often with these weather conditions. I was just about to say, you need to turn now. There we go. And they are extremely efficient when it comes to de-icing. Something I wouldn't really say when you consider airports like Frankfurt and Munich. So, right, that worked quite nicely. So, let's stop here.
Set parking brakes.
Brake set. So, we've got the fuel pumps on. We have... no, we don't have the fuel pumps on. Good thing I checked. APU bleeders on. Engine to start. Hey, Carbon Bell, how are you doing? Nice to see you. Greetings to Halifax. There's still enough time for the memes, yeah. Absolutely. It's going too well for GSX standards, it is. Yeah, I know. I know. Right, so engine 2 is started. Let's start engine 1. Munich de-icing is so slow. Well, I think Munich's actually better than Frankfurt. Frankfurt just... I always have a feeling that in Frankfurt they just use too much de-icing fluid. But, hey, that's just my opinion. Hazos, yes, we can do that, yeah. It doesn't have that here in GSX, but obviously I can tell you what normally would be said. One thing you have to realize as a pilot, the moment that you have these weather conditions, it becomes extremely difficult to have, a scheduled departure and scheduled arrival. That is just something
cockpit to ground.
That you have to accept.
Start. You can disconnect.
Because you do want to avoid haste, right? Haste makes waste, and when you try to do things fast in these conditions, taxi fast, do the procedures fast, don't read through all the notes. That's the time when you start making mistakes. And again, these things are very critical here.
Unlocking gear.
You can damage the aircraft really quickly, you can harm people very quickly, so yeah. Exactly, MCK. And that's the thing. You just have to accept that. That is just the way it is. Right, cool. So, guys, let's go through the first difference.
Tow truck disconnected. Bypass pin removed.
When it comes to
left is clear, right
remote
is clear.
de-icing. Let's see. Let's see what you guys can come up with your knowledge. So, what do we have to consider now? Hey, it's me, Brett. How you doing? Exactly. So normally what we would do now is we would go through our after start flows. So that remains the same, right? APU off, engine ITIs on, obviously, since it is cold. It is wet. So definitely the wing the engine ITIs. Exactly. Exactly. You do not use flaps, and you do not do the flight control check, because you're supposed to do the flight control check after you have selected the flaps. So, however, what you can do is, and you should do, is you should set the stabilizer. So 27.7, let's do that. So let's assume that's 27.7, so that should be up, 0.2 not down. And what about the after start checklist? Exactly. That's something people sometimes will get wrong as well in the A320, not the real pilots, but flight simmers. You can, or you must actually read the after start checklist now, because the after start checklist has the following items. After start checklist: anti-ice. Right, that's important for ground ops here in these conditions. Anti-ice, engine anti-ice is on. ECAM status checked. Pitch trim 27.7% set, and rudder trim neutral. And that's the after start checklist completed. What you're not going to do, you're not going to go through the taxi items and taxi checklist until you have finished de-icing later on. But we've done the after start checklist, and we do not do the after start checklist again. That is finished. So after finishing the pushback engine start, the aircraft is left in the following state. Flaps remain in position 0. That prevents damage in case of ice and snow accumulations. The flight control check is delayed until de-icing is completed. However, the trimmable horizontal stabilizer is set, however, to the required value. Read the after start checklist, and then taxi to the de-icing area, and once parking brake set, perform the items procedure for ground de-icing, anti-icing, etc. We'll get through that in a minute. So, GSX, what do we do now? We go GSX, and then if the airport has de-icing areas in the AFCAT file, you can actually select. And we're going to go and select the area 602. Do we need to follow me? No, we'll find it ourselves. And there we go, clear left side, clear right side. Taxi clearance is going to be via, let's have a look, it will be Zulu Delta, hold short 2 to left. Initially, that is. So, brakes off. Right there. Fantastic. That's wonderful. Right, let's go. Brake check. Brakes are working. Hey Milton, how you doing? Captain Falafel, you think that in Hamburg they are a bit skimpy with the de-icing fluid? Okay. I find it quite interesting that the kind of feel of the weather right now is nice. You get a nice immersion here with that kind of, you know, weather. Obviously, it would be a lot better if you actually had icing effects, you know, proper icing effects. That would be really, really cool. So here comes Zulu Delta. Alpha, yeah. I mean, you know, it's never going to be perfect, right? So, you know, just don't get worked up too much about these things which are not 100% perfect. It's not worth it. It's not worth getting upset about it. Enjoy what you have. So, Zulu Delta, here comes the threshold, the threshold, the hold short line, I should say. 2 to left, right, cross 2 to left, and then taxi via Delta Charlie to the de-icing. So we'll do that. Well, only the Joker, yeah, at the beginning it was actually really, really bad. However, again, there are still some aircraft that are not really going or not coping well with the icing effects in Max Flight Sim. Oh, that's really strange, Milton. You can hear the other pilots, but you can't hear ATC? Now that's really weird. So let's have a look at the parking stands. Actually, so 602, that's here, that's the middle part. So this is where we're going to taxi to. So the middle stand, 602. Well, yeah, of course. Well, Iceberg, yeah. If you're on Unicom, obviously there is no ATC, but I would assume that he is on a proper frequency. And Serkan, hello to you. How are you doing? MCK asks, do you have the supplement procedures in your FCOM, QRH, or separate document? Well, we have it in the EFB. So it's under supplementary procedures. And the good thing is in EFB we have what we call quick links. So now I just need to concentrate on trying to find the right position. That's 601. So the next one to the right should be 602. Right, I'm gonna turn off the taxi lights. Now this is the thing which should be very cool now to see. I'm not sure if everyone has. Look at that board. You see that board there? That should light up in a second. There we go, look at that. So Finnair 711 stands 602, and that should now guide us in. I'm trying to get onto the center line here, and then we're going to slow down. Taxi forward, it says. Don't know if you can see that. So it says taxi forward. Now that gives us the countdown to the hold. Slow down here. And stop here. So now what will happen normally is when we taxi in, every triangle is 10 meters. Fantastic. That's pretty neat. So normally when you taxi in, you will be told by ATC to contact a certain frequency. So the icing frequency. Here in Helsinki, I'm pretty sure there's either a van or there are signs that that will give you the frequency. Exactly. On the second set, contact Iceman 121985. Let's do that. So normally the either the first officer or I will do the communications there. Let's pretend I'm going to do the communications. So VHF 2. Right. So I would say Iceman from. Well, with Finnair, it says Finnair 711. Although before we contact them, let's have a look. So, what kind of de-icing do we need? And it mainly depends on the snow accumulation on the aircraft. So for me as a captain, I'm responsible to make sure that I get the aircraft de-iced. However, for the correct procedure and to make sure the aircraft is free of all the contaminants, that is the responsibility of the de-icer, right? So I have to make sure the aircraft is de-iced and free of contaminants in the sense of from my normal duties. However, for the procedure itself, that is in the responsibility of the de-icing company. So I have I have several options. And of course, in general, the wings, the horizontal stabilizer, and the rudder have to be free of contaminants. So anything ice, frost, snow, they have to be free of that. On top of that, however, if you have, you know, strong snowfall and the aircraft is on the ground for longer periods of time, snow will accumulate also on the fuselage. And of course, that has to be removed as well. Why? What's the problem with the snow on the fuselage? I mean, you could assume maybe as you accelerate down the runway, you know, the wind will blow that off, right? Drag, yeah, absolutely. Drag, weight is definitely a big issue, Christian. Correct. Exactly. So you don't actually know if you have ice and below the snow. And as a matter of fact, ice can accumulate very quickly, very easily initially, because imagine the aircraft lands and you had a lovely 23 degrees, 24 degrees Celsius in the cabin. So initially the snow may melt on the fuselage, but then refreeze as it's cold outside. And so you have a layer of ice on that on the fuselage, and then it snows on top of that. And so to assume that the snow would blow off may be a big mistake, because the aircraft may be completely iced under that layer of snow, and that adds weight, obviously. And any ice breaking off can damage antennas, it can damage the rudder, it can damage the stabilizer. Or if it breaks off, it could go be ingested by the engines, you name it. So that's why if there is snow on the fuselage, you would have to have that removed as well. Alpha has a question. One question is that the pilot has the last word if you can fly, but for de-icing, you're basically taking your trust in the operator that does a good job. Yes. As a pilot, apart from looking out the window, you don't do any inspection. Just trust is good. Well, I mean, I still have the option. So Alpha, let's say that there had been some reports that at the airport, the de-icing company is maybe not doing such a good job, right? I can still go into the cabin and I can actually have some passengers get up off their seats for a second, and then I'll look out the window. I can actually go and check for myself. If I feel the need to do so, I could do that. Right. Has it ever happened to you? No. The thing is that I actually got a call once from the cabin crew, and they said that the wing looks weird to them after the icing. So I actually did go and have a look, but it was just the lighting and the Type 4 fluid, and they had sprayed just a ton of fluid onto the aircraft. But there wasn't any contaminants or anything like that. It was just a lot of fluid, and so, you know, there was a time when the cabin crew was trained a little bit more to be more assertive with regards to de-icing, and so that's when you got some more calls from the cabin. You know, if they hadn't seen that before, and they may be you know, uncomfortable with how it looked, so it can happen. But very rarely. Yes, but yes, of course, you have to have a trust in the de-icer. But if you have any doubts, go and check, you know. Oh, the black arrows. Oh, MCK knows that. Or maybe some other people know that as well. So if you go and have a look at the... Let's go up a bit. There we go. As you go through the cabin... Oh, you don't have it here. It's in the FS Labs. Yeah, the FS Labs has them, right? No, it's not center of gravity points, no.
Welcome aboard the Captain Black Box Twitch channel subscriber experience. Could new subscribers
Yeah, that's
please
my
make
understanding
your
as well,
way
just
to
like
the
MCK
first
said,
class
that
cabin,
it's these
where
points where you can
complimentary
quickly
drinks, snacks, and
go
premium
and check.
flight
This is the
entertainment
best
will be
position to
served.
check the
Thank
slats
you.
and the flaps.
Guten Abend. Just joined. Any
It's a
news
shame that it doesn't
regarding
have that
type
here,
rating yet?
the Phoenix. Okay, Clocon, thank you so much for the 47 months. Thank you so much, Clocon. I hope you're doing well. Right, so on our website, let me just go and find that for you. So if you are interested in, de-icing procedures, go to blackbox711.com. And you will go to Documents, and then go to Documents A320, and then go to Checklists. And there on the checklist you have the ground de-icing and anti-icing procedure. Now what you don't have there, because up to now that has been for our subscribers only and the members only, there is a workshop file with winter ops. So let me just find that for you. There it is. So under winter ops, I explained everything about the icing effects, etc., why it's so critical, and also I described the different fluid types. So I'm not sure if GSX has, hey Andreas, and Hobby Pilot, hey, if they corrected that. So type 1 is actually orange in color, and type 4 is green. Type 2 is yellow or transparent, and a type 3, which we don't use in jets because normally I think it's more like the private jets that use type 3. But for us airliners, it is type 1, 2, and 4 that we use, and that's why you have those in GSX as well. So what's the big difference? Well, it has to do with the amount of thickener that they add to the fluid, and also the relationship between the glycol and the wetting agent. So WIW stands for water plus inhibitors plus wetting agent. All right, and so you have different mixtures, and you can see the type 4 has 2% thickener. So that usually means that the holdover times is a lot longer because it has a higher viscosity, and it can take up more contaminants before you have to de-ice again. So the holdover time will be longer with type 4 fluids. In these conditions that we have right now, we would have a 2-step process, meaning that in the first step, you would normally use hot type 1 fluid to get rid of all the contaminants. So you kind of wash off the contaminants. And then once that is done, you do a second step where you add the anti-icing layer. And then you use, like in these conditions, you would probably use type 4 to make sure that you have the required hold over time. Turkey, you say you don't even get type 2 or 3 in Finland. It's either 1 or 4. It could be, yeah. I'm not 100% sure, which country has what, but it could be Turkey, yeah. So these tables are actually not current. So again, it's for PC flight simulation only, and I don't want to make it too complicated, but you can see from these tables, type 1 has today, for example, in snow, you have, let's say, temperature, what's temperature right now? It's -5. So you'd have to go look at 0 to -10. Snow, you have 6 to 15 minutes. Now, 6 minutes is for medium precipitation rate, and 15 would be for light precipitation rate. So if it's heavy precipitation, you don't even have a table for that. So you can't use that. Nowadays we have better tables and we have better definitions on the precipitation rate. So it's become a lot more sophisticated, but a lot more accurate. And so you have just more better indications regarding your holdover time. Good. So obviously today 6 to 15 minutes. Let's say with this rate it's medium snowfall. Forget it. So we can't do that. Why? Because 6 minutes, that's a time when you start applying the de-icing layer. So the moment that today, for example, you start with the type 4, that is the time, or that's the point at which the holdover time already starts running. So if they take 10 minutes to put the anti-icing layer onto the aircraft, that's it. You're already over. All right, you can do this game, in a never-ending process, and you will never lift off. So type 1, absolute no-go. Type 2, -4 to -14. Well, that would give you, with different concentrations, 100% would give you 15 to 30 minutes. But again, with medium precipitation rate, only 15 minutes. Again, that's just, that just doesn't make sense, right? So the only thing that's sensible in this case, -4 to -14, 100%, that will give you 20 to 40 minutes. All right, and even that is actually fairly close, right? So you could say that since we are parked very close to the runway, so we're currently parked here. We only have to taxi out, a couple meters to get airborne. That's the only thing really that makes sense in these conditions, right? MCK, absolutely. I've had situation, it happens very rarely, but I remember having the situation in Belgrade where they only had type 2, and we had to de-ice at the stand, and it was like, slowing like this, and you just could not get the aircraft airborne in time. So we couldn't depart. It's just, simple as that. Okay. So let's say, both pilots have gone through the tables. They discussed what fluid type they need to use, 1-step, 2-step, and what concentration. So we decided now, in real life, it would need a 2-step procedure and type 4 for the anti-icing. Milton will get to that in a minute. Let me just start the procedure. Now, before we actually apply the fluid to the aircraft, we have to prepare the aircraft for de-icing. And again, it is there to make sure that you do not miss important items like, switching engine bleed off, getting the ditching push button on, etc., etc. Check the thrust leaders are idle. Jet blast was referred to earlier on. So, and the weird thing is, this is actually a list that you don't have to do by reading it. You can actually do this by memory. So our company allows us to do this by memory. And they are saying that if you are in winter time and you've done the procedure like, 20 times in the last 2 weeks, well, then you know what to do, right? However, for me, I always go according to the checklist because I don't know how often my first officer has had, anti-icing, de-icing, and if my first officer really feels comfortable by doing the procedure by memory. So just to take out some of the, the haste. Yeah, MCK, exactly, right? No doubt. Yeah, exactly. That's the thing, right? So good. So let's do this. So I would call up ground de-icing, anti-icing start procedure. The first officer gets the list out and he says, right, the aircraft can be de-iced or anti-iced when APU and engines are either off or running. Alright, that's fine with us. Before applying the fluid, cabin pressure mode selected, check auto. What does that mean? Well, on your cabin pressure panel there, you have this button there, this rotary knob that you can actually twist and select a landing elevation manually. Right, you've got to make sure that the pressure selector here is in auto, so that line is aligned with the auto. And actually, what you can do as well, obviously, you can check the eCameras or the SD page, and it says auto. Yeah. Let's have it again. Hold on. There we go. So when you have the that selected to manual, obviously, then it will say that here as well. Let's check. That should say the same though. There we go. No. Yeah, I'm a bit. I don't know why. Yeah. Now that says there, manual landing. There we go. Manual. It says that manual there as well. Yeah, this thing sometimes I get confused sometimes if I have something in the sim that behaves differently to the real aircraft. That always causes confusion. Right, anyways, so yeah, make sure that is in auto so it doesn't show manual, and make sure that the landing elevation also is in auto. So what's next then? Engine bleed 1 and 2 off. So right now, what we do, if we press that ditching button there, what will happen is that all the vents will close, including the outflow valve here. All that closes. And if you have the engine bleeds running, so the pack system running, you will have a horrible experience. I can demonstrate that here in the sim. So pressing the ditching push button, look what happens to the cabin rate. Right, this is a safety feature, so it will switch off the packs. Right, but still, initially you would have a pressure spike, and your passengers would not be happy. So that's why initially, before you touch the ditching push button, you actually select both engine bleeds off. You're not happy? Right, there we go. So switching the bleeds off manually, 1 and 2 obviously, is going to bring up the ECAM caution message. Bleed 1 and 2, but that is manually switched. Then we always switch the APU bleed, or check that the APU bleed is off. So the APU isn't running, so the APU bleed is switched off anyways. Then we go and press the ditching push button. Hey Bob, how you doing? De-icing in the Phoenix. Well, hang on. We'll see how it goes. So ditching push button push, and then we check that the outflow valve closes. And why is that important? Well, now we have closed all the vents, and so any fluid applied to the aircraft, to the fuselage, etc., will not get into the aircraft. Is the Phoenix A320 as good as the FS Labs? Not quite. No, it's not quite there yet. You know, they're still having to do lots of development with that add-on yet. So I wouldn't say it's as good as the FS Labs. The FS Labs is more mature. It has a lot more features. Good. So let's go through that again. I've been distracted here, but so we've done the cabin pressure mode selector checked auto. We've got the engine bleed 1 and 2 off, APU bleed was off, ditching push button is on, thrust levers check idle. They are idle, and then now we would say the aircraft is prepared for spraying. So we call Iceman from Finnair 711, and they would say go ahead, and we say well, aircraft is prepared for the icing, and then they would say roger, trucks are getting into position, and we'll report when
the icing vehicles are coming now.
The icing is finished. Yeah, so what check-in says, yeah, so on the ground you have different procedures regarding confirmation of these guarded switches. The same for the master switches. On the ground you just switch them off. You do not confirm that. But of course, common sense, obviously, normally you have a procedure that tells you what you need to do, what you need to switch, right? So on the ground, for example, when you have the engine fire, and it says discharge the agents, you just discharge. You don't confirm that with the other pilot. I think we're having that effect. What someone wrote. It's normally best if you restart Coatl to get the de-icing trucks, because now I think that they are going to be coming from the apron, right? So that's why it takes so long now for them to arrive. They're stuck in the snow. Lol. Exactly. So if you were parked like us, very far away from the terminal now, then obviously it'll take a while for the trucks to arrive. But I just worried if I restart GSX now. Closest vehicle spawn point, okay. I've already done that, so I already got GSX, and I requested the de-icing trucks. And it says de-icing vehicles are on their way. So before I restart Coatl and maybe mess up everything, I'm just going to wait a little bit longer. Yeah, MB, pleasure. Yeah, I mean, I had that before. So this afternoon, they actually did spawn very close behind the aircraft. I'm not sure where they are right now. I'm just worried if I restart Quattl. Oh, hang on! Look at that. De-icer incoming. So where are they? The evac panel, okay, so the evac panel, we don't actually use that in our procedures. I know that some airlines may do that, but it has certain functions. So, for example, if you switch that to on, and depending on the aircraft configuration, you may have a horn, there may be a evacuation tone, there may be announcements playing in the cabin. Again, that's depending on the airline options. Yeah, aircraft fully covered once that arrives. A question. Say you have 40 minutes transit. Can you already look in the cruise at the OFP for the return sector and order fuel? MCK, yes, you could, yeah. And as a matter of fact, if we have an aircraft change on the ground, let's say, so we arrive in one aircraft and then we have to wait for passengers to deboard, and then change the aircraft. Right, I'm just going to restart that. And then we can already call up the OFP for the next flight and actually order fuel through the EFB for the next flight.
The icing
there we go. So yeah, you may need to restart Quattl for some reason, but there they are. Alright, so... So the function Captain Purser, well, it depends on what is selected.
Confirm aircraft is ready for treatment.
So we said we want to have Type 4. And we'll do 100%.
We begin treatment now and observe fluid type 4. Concentration at 100%.
Hey, Stetke.
I will call you back when ready.
So one thing I would love to see actually is if they gave the option for 2-step de-icing, but also if they actually gave you the option to choose, wings or wing stabilizer fin, and then they would take their time and actually drive back and de-ice everything accordingly. I know, right, MCK? It's literally the same sounds, the same animations. Tandem. Right, so this gives the, if you put this to Captain, only the Captain can do the evacuation alert. Right, if that is on Captain and Purser, then the alert can be activated from the cockpit panel or the Purser panel. That's what that means.
The icing and anti-icing completed, and the icing code is fluid type 4. Concentration at 100%. I am disconnecting. Good day.
So what's missing is that they would tell you when they started the de-icing and when the anti-icing started. So the anti-icing is very important as a start point. You would have to note that down and send that off. So we have in our EFB, we actually have a page where we enter all that data. So when the de-icing started, the anti-icing started, what fluid type was used, and what concentration was used. And we'll send that off before we continue with the procedure. And it actually has that as a checklist point to go through. So upon completion of this spraying operation, ditching push button off. So now it's kind of a reverse order. So the first thing we'll do is we'll have the ditching push button off. Make sure the cover is back on again. Now you can see the outflow valve opens up again. And it says outflow valve check open. That is checked open. Now, in real life, we have to wait 1 minute after finishing of the spraying to switch on the engine bleed 1 and 2. So engine 1 bleed on, engine 2 bleed on. And then it says ground equipment remove and the de-icing, anti-icing report received. And then in case you had de-icing at the stand, so your engines are not running, or if you calculated a departure with the pack system on APU bleed, you would have to wait 5 minutes until you can switch on the APU bleed again. Now, to be fair, I would really hate to use APU bleed. Hey Negative, how you doing? I would really hate to use APU bleed in these conditions when you actually de-ice the aircraft, because the intake is below the fuselage there, and as you take off, you have to realize that if it's a busy airport, every aircraft that has de-iced and starts to accelerate down the runway will have their de-icing fluids being blown off the aircraft, and it usually lands on the runway. So you have a runway that is actually covered with de-icing fluid. And so as you go along and the engines are producing thrust and you get that fine spray, and it's then sucked into the APU bleed system, and that way you get horrible stench, if you like. It's not really that horrible, but it's got kind of a chemical smell in the cabin that may get passengers worried about what's happening. So again, I would rather have APU bleed not being used, but more the engine bleed being used, because you're still going to have a little bit of an issue that you may ingest some of these de-icing fluids into the core of the engine, and then the bleed air being used from the engine for the pack system. You may still get that kind of that smell, but there is a filter system in place, so it's probably not that bad. But the best thing to do really is to actually don't take off with packs off. That would be the best thing to do in these conditions. So at the moment, GSX is just a visual simulation right now. The only simulator up to this point that I've seen where icing has effect, and
Welcome aboard the Captain Black Box.
you have to look at and
Subscriber
monitor the
experience.
holdover time is the
For
FS
new
Labs in
subscribers, please
P3D.
make your way to the first class cabin.
Up to now, that's the only aircraft I've used, and where it would have a pretty bad effect.
Moinsen.
Hey, moin,
Unfortunate
Voyager, wie
smile.
geht's? Thank you so much for the 27 months, Voyager. Vielen Dank. Ich hoffe, dir geht's gut. No, don't worry about it. I'm just a demonstration right now, guys. This is just to see how GSX works and to go through the procedure. Yeah, I mean, it's fine. So when you go after you finish the icing procedure and you taxi out at low power settings, there isn't so much odor coming into the cabin that way. But for takeoff power, that is a different matter. On the runway, there's just a lot more fluid lying around, etc., etc. So good. So now that we finished the de-icing, anti-icing procedure, what we'll do now is consider whether or not to do the rest of the after start flow now or later. And I know you guys are so knowledgeable. I'm pretty sure that nobody would extend the flaps right now. Why? Because I'll just go through that. Oh, that's a different one. Hold on. There we go. So, so when the de-icing procedure. Oh, don't worry about it. It's just, again, this is today just go through the procedure itself. The second flight we may have to look at the hold-up time. So when the icing procedure check is completed, either extend the flaps to take a position and do a flight control check, or in case of precipitation, snowfall, or taxiway contamination, delay the flaps extension and flight control check until reaching the runway threshold to avoid contamination of exposed areas. What does that mean? Well, if I put the flaps, let's say, to 2, right? So you have de-iced the aircraft, and now you extend the flaps. So all of these areas are unprotected. Right? There's no fluid on these areas that were tucked in, with the flaps being at 0. So now, since there's no protection, you'll have snow accumulating on these surfaces. Alpha, because you're not supposed to move the flight controls because they may be frozen, right? Ice, and you can actually damage the system. So that's why you don't. Yeah, you don't extend until you have anti-ice or de-ice the aircraft, not anti, but de-ice the aircraft. And for taxi out, you would not extend the flaps, and you would not do the flight control check until you reach the runway threshold. Right. So. Now we would contact the ground control again and say de-icing is completed, request taxi. And now the clearance will be via Delta Whiskey holding point 2 to right. Creshu, last time they put the flaps 1 after pushback, then flap 0 for de-icing. No, that doesn't make sense to Creshu. Then they did a procedure mistake. There's no point in bringing the flaps out when you know you have to de-ice the aircraft, unless the Creshu, unless they initially didn't want to de-ice, and then for whatever reason. As they were taxiing out, they then decided that maybe it's better to de-ice the aircraft. That's the only explanation I have for that. On the 737 check, it says to move the flaps for up to 40 and back. Okay, that's interesting. Yeah, to check whether or not it's working. Was there ever the case where the PERS accidentally initiated the evacuation? No. Is the PERS allowed to, or any flight attendant allowed to start the evacuation? Yes, indeed they are. If there is no doubt that an evacuation is needed. So let's say you're doing an RTO, the aircraft runs over the edge of the runway and ends up half in the water, and there's no call from the cockpit after a certain time. And the aircraft is starting to fill with water, and you're absolutely sure that you need to evacuate, and there's no command from the cockpit. The flight attendants are allowed to actually start the evacuation process. Good. So we are now at the takeoff runway, and so now what we do is go flaps, arm the spoilers. And then we do the flight control check. Make sure that everything's working, nothing's stuck. Alright. Remember, we already read the after start checklist. We don't have to do that again. But we're going to go through the taxi items now. And then we would call for the taxi checklist. So flight controls checked, flap setting 1+F, radar, predictive wind shear system on and auto, engine mode selector normal, and eco memo takeoff no blue. So now we've done everything we need to do to get the aircraft configured for departure. And we'll call the tower now and say ready for departure. Now, of course, we would now just quickly have a look again at the conditions. You know, have they worsened? And then we check that we're still within the holdover time window. Hey Stepke, yes, of course, yeah. So I've applied for the 747 and the 787, so whatever comes first, I will use. No, there's no, so Casper, no. So on the A320, we don't have that procedure that we have to go with 2 flaps full, at least not at our company. Maybe there's other, you know, operators that that tell their pilots to do so. For us, it's not. Good. There's one more thing I want to cover. So in these conditions, especially like today, you know, temperatures below below freezing, and having to de-ice the aircraft, the engine's running at idle power or low power settings for a very long time, so let's say half an hour or more, you have to consider an engine run-up. Why is that? Because you may have started to accumulate ice on the fan blades. So what we do is an ice shedding procedure. Now preferably it's done with parking brakes set. However, depending on the engine type, so for the CFM or Neos, you would put the N1 at 70% for 30 seconds at intervals not greater than 30 minutes. However, for the IE engines, it's only 50-55% N1, and you're supposed to avoid the 61 to 74% range N1 to prevent the fan blade fluttering. So that's an issue with the IE engines, and they're at intervals not greater than 15 minutes. Now, of course, this should be done with parking brake set unless the taxiway runway is contaminated and there's a risk of the aircraft actually slipping with parking brakes set. And there actually has been a case once where in general, so if the runway is contaminated, you are not allowed to set the parking brake again when you've entered the runway, because there has been a case where somebody took off with the parking brake set. Right, it was slippery, and once they applied some thrust, the aircraft was actually moving, but the parking brake was still set, and that's not a good idea to do. Right, so what we do is normally we have engine page here visible, and then we go full brakes on. Ask the tower, I'll tell the tower prior to lineup, hey, we need to do an engine run up. Right, 70%, 30 seconds. Make sure that we have normal vibration levels. Yeah, MCK, now it does. It was many years ago when that happened, and back then it didn't generate that CRC, so maybe some of you, maybe at some point someone actually was as a passenger flying along, and they actually had the situation where they lined up and they put a fairly high thrust setting on the engines for about 30 seconds. So we said Toga power, so we got Man Toga SAS runway oil thrust blue. Thrust is set. .100 knots, checked. And stop. So First green, decel. Right, attention crew and station, attention crew and station. Yeah, so that's the procedure for the ground de-icing, anti-icing. It's not that complicated, but again, even though we do this many, many times in real life, you know, especially winter time, you still do it according to the checklist normally, just because, you know, you want to make sure that you don't miss anything. Right, as a little treat, I will show you the video before we do the second flight. So this is a rework video on a landing into Billund, where we had Cat 3 in use. And it was very, very beautiful because it was daytime and it was only like a very low, shallow fog layer. And Aaron, because we're going to do a flight in the second part of the stream, so I'll show you a video and then we'll do the second part today, where we're going to fly from Munich to Cologne on VATSIM. Exactly, so this was just for the icing and the procedure there. Let me see if there's more questions. Marco, hey, you flew it from Amsterdam to Helsinki, oh actually Amsterdam to Helsinki on the A321. Wing light was on the whole flight. They must have realized it, passing through. Well, I mean, the wing light, it doesn't do anything in flight, so there's no risk. I mean, it does obviously have a certain wear effect on the light bulbs maybe, but apart from that, it's not dangerous to have the wing lights on all the time. It just doesn't do much good during the flight. Right, so that's more use on the ground, outside check, that sort of stuff. Wing light is thinner up, is it really? Why? Why is that a SOP? No, you're joking. What? They put the landing lights only down with the gear? Again, to save wear on the light bulbs or something? Okay. Well, again, I can't judge that. Yeah, if it's different operators, different SOPs, why not? But I mean, the thing is this. I mean, the landing lights. That is something that is extremely visible in flight. Why wouldn't you use that below 10,000 feet? Drag? Oh, come on. Yeah, but I mean, there's so many things in aviation that's expensive, but you still go and fly, right? So even the light bulb, even if a light bulb is expensive, well, so what? I mean, well, I'm glad that we use the landing lights. Anyways. So here's the video, guys. I'll be back in a few minutes. Actually, I can comment some of the stuff there, actually. So again, in Billund, it was lovely, lovely winter day. Some snow on the ground and absolutely beautiful. It's rare to actually see this kind of beautiful setup with the weather. And the top of the clouds, so the top of the fog layer was about 400 feet. It was like, I think, 400, 300 feet above the ground. That's when the fog layer started. And the runway visibility range was between 425 and 200 meters. So that's why we did a Cat 3 automatic landing on that flight. Oh yeah, MCK, absolutely. They must have thought, you know, why are we extending the landing gear like in 5,000 feet? Well, we can MCK. It's not done that often. Because the problem is if you do that, I mean, you have to do it early enough, because I promise you, if you do that, like, let's say 5,000 feet, you'll have 20 passengers scrambling out of their seats to mess about in the overhead bins, and you know, just to check that their PEDs and everything are switched off. So you need to do that very early on. So, but yeah, you can. I don't really. I don't know if it were that critical, then I think there would be different procedures and use for that. Right, so here comes the video. Let's just go ahead. You leaving the Airbus again? Well, yeah. After how many years? 10, 11 years now? Yeah, 11 years. Yeah, so I'm not that sad about it, though. Right, here comes the video. No, this is a bit higher up now. So this is in about, what, 6,000–7,000 feet. So you can see on the left side there, that was what we were facing. So there were some patches of this very low ground fog layers. And again, you don't see that very often. Yeah, exactly. It's very isolated fog patches. So here we're inbound on the base leg, about to turn final. It looks like a bug in Microsoft Flight Simulator. Lol. Hey, Real Dog Fan, how you doing? Right, so now we're turning final. And I can see that the ground is getting more and more covered in these fog patches. Yeah, only facts. I've been with flight simming since 1992. So really right from the start. Right, so here we are on final, and again you can see that we're fairly low to the ground already, right? But still pretty far up above the fog layer. Oh, sorry, I think now we're turning final. Yeah, probably now we're turning final. Hey, Balibi. What flight sim do you mean? Malibu. Campbell is Billund in Denmark. That's the ICAO. Yeah, but I mean, what aircraft, Malibu? Are you scared of flying in fog? No, I find it exciting. So, you know, Cat 3 approaches, automatic landing, that's something that really fascinates me still. And just being, you know, aware of the fact that you're just monitoring, everything else is done by the autopilot system. No, so normally Malibu, the sensitivity will be the same on both sides. There shouldn't be a big difference between up and down. What do you mean, Stepke? Well, you have to be able to take over manually. So I've got my hands on the stick and I have my thumb on the autopilot disconnect button. I mean, you know, you're flying very low to the ground at the end. So you've got to be ready to take over if anything goes wrong.
1,000.
Campbell, normally, well, below 10,000 is a good habit because of VFAR traffic in Europe at least. But for us, there's no clear rule on that, apart from flying manually. But it doesn't say, you know, below 10,000 feet you have to have the hand on the stick. I guess it's more like pilot, you know, common sense. Right, there we go. Look at that. How low we are already.
400. 300. 200. 100. 50, 40, 30.
And the autopilot did
20,
an absolute greaser.
10,
I hate that.
Retard. Retard.
What a show off. Yeah, you can see the varying visibility now. So now it's actually quite good. At the beginning it was quite bad.
Auto brake off.
So that's why it was kind of varying between 400 to 200 meters. MCK, I don't know, they didn't really comment much. Yeah, so initially max reverse, obviously for the conditions. Obviously you want to make sure that you have good braking. Alright, and then you heard the auto brake off. And that's a new feature. And then you have to disconnect the autopilot as well as you get off the runway. Do minutes apply when you see the beginning of the runway, or should be able to see the whole runway to say land? No, so Alpha, So the call-out land comes at about 350 feet, and that is when your prime flight display goes from glide slope and localizer mode to the combined mode land. And that's it. And then you continue. If the systems continue normally, you continue, and then below 100 feet, the auto-land light is armed. And so if there's no faults, you continue. In a Cat 3 Bravo, you don't need to see anything until touchdown. And not even that touchdown. You can actually, at 75 meters when you touch down, and you have like, 8 degrees pitch angle, you will not see anything. So when the nose lowers, and then suddenly you have that slant angle towards the ground, then you start seeing maybe 1 or 2 lights. That's how low the visibility can go. No, Jesus, no, because this was a 319 actually. So they had retrofitted that with that call out. Ever made an auto-land in config 3? No. No, because the pitch angle is lower with config full, at least on 390, 320s. But no, I've never done a config 3 landing. A golf cart waiting, yeah. Yeah, there we go. So that's a beautiful... Hey, Bruno, how you doing? That's a beautiful Cat 3 landing. Good. So what we'll do, guys, I've already set up Munich. I will quickly end this stream. I'll be back in about 3 minutes. And then we'll go and fly on VATSIM again from Munich to Cologne in icing conditions. So probably have to de-ice again. And let's see how that works on VATSIM. Right, thanks for all the support, guys. I'll be back in 3 minutes, so stay tuned.